Story 1. This is a story from the distant past when I was a kid, early 80s Australia. My family lived in suburban Townsville then. We had a fairly tight-knit community on our street and all generally got along well. Our neighbor on the right side was a lovely old lady. I have no idea what her name was, but us kids all called her Gran. She was a tough old bird, lived in the bush all her life, and had a real no-nonsense attitude. On our left side was a block of 2 flats with tenants that seemed to come and go all the time. At this particular time there was a middle-aged woman and her 2 kids. This woman, as I recall, was a bit of a witch and had a real better-than-you attitude. No idea what her name was, but we will refer to her as Karen because it fits. Now Gran loved her garden and was always working in it. She grew beautiful flowers. Her garden was always kept in perfect condition and was essentially what kept her going in her old age. The local kids were welcome in her garden just as long as we did not make a mess. Karen, on the other hand, loved her dog. It was some poodle cross thing, and an ugly mutt in my opinion. Unlike the rest of our dogs, it was not allowed to roam the streets and play with the kids, but was kept inside, except for the daily walk each morning on a lead. I bet you can see where this is heading. One morning we heard sounds of an argument coming from Gran's front yard. Apparently Karen had decided to help herself to some of Gran's flowers while walking the dog. When told off by Gran, she then decided to insult Gran's garden, which was a very bad mistake. So the 2 exchanged words before Karen stalked off. We thought that was that until Gran started to find dog poop in her yard every day. As most of our dogs roamed the street, she could not say it was happening deliberately, just that it was strange that the dogs had avoided the place until now. Then we find out that Karen has changed her routine and was walking her dog at dawn each day. My dad spotted her as he was going to work, and of course Karen was using the opportunity to have her dog take a dump on Gran's lawn. When Gran found out, she was furious. I was at school at the time, so I did not see it, but Mum recounted the events. Apparently Gran had taken a garden trowel of dog poop and gone over to Karen's door, where she had told Karen that she would rub your face in the next dog poop I see on my lawn. Karen responded with a tirade of abuse and then slammed the door before Gran threw the poop at her. So the stage is set. On to Act 2. Scene: early Saturday morning. We were woken by screams at daybreak. It sounded like there was a fight happening at Gran's place. All the neighbors rushed out to the most amazing scene ever. In Gran's front yard, on the lawn, lay Karen face down with Gran perched astride her back. One hand on the back of Karen's neck and the other hand with a firm grip on Karen's hair as she rubbed her face back and forth through a nice fresh dog poop. Karen was screaming bloody murder between gasping for breath and spitting out grass and crap. Gran was shouting, "I warned you, I bloody warned you, you stupid Y8TCH. So it turns out the cunning old girl knew Karen was too stupid to take a warning, so she had got up early to lay in wait and then ambushed Karen in the garden. Karen was never the same again. She moved out in less than a week. The best laugh I think I have ever had. Never mess with the grannies, folks. Story 2. So, I live in this nice little suburban neighborhood, right? One day, I'm out in my front yard, tending to my roses, when Karen storms up to me. "Hey, you," she yells. I look up, kind of surprised. Hi, Karen? What's up?" She just stands there with her hands on her hips and gives me this smug look. "I need to talk to you about something very important." I'm thinking, okay, what could be so important? I put down my gardening tools and say, "Sure, what's on your mind?" And that's when she drops the bombshell. She goes, "You know, I've been thinking and you should put me in your will." I blink a few times, totally taken aback. "What? Are you serious?" Karen nods like it's the most obvious thing in the world. "Absolutely. It's only fair, you know." I couldn't believe it. "Karen, my will is for my family and loved ones, not my neighbors. Plus, what brought this up?" She crosses her arms and gets all huffy. "Well, I've been such a good neighbor to you, and I think I deserve it." I'm thinking, What in the world? I try to reason with her. Karen, I appreciate the neighborly gestures and all, but that's not how wills work. They're meant for family, not neighbors. Karen's face turns all red, and she starts getting louder. I've done so much for you. I deserve to be in your will. I'm getting a bit fed up at this point. Karen, I can't believe you're even asking for this. It's not happening. And then, here's the kicker. She points her finger right at me and says, if you don't do it, there will be consequences. I'm thinking, what kind of neighbor demands to be in your will and threatens you if you refuse? It was unreal, and I had a bad feeling that this was just the beginning of a crazy story that I was about to live through. A few days after our first chat, I thought things might have blown over. But oh boy, was I wrong. One evening, I hear a knock on my front door. Who else could it be but Karen? I open the door, and she's standing there with a plate of freshly baked cookies, like everything is perfectly normal. Hi, John, she says, all fake friendly. I'm a bit cautious this time. Hey, Karen, what brings you here? She waltzes right in without an invitation and plunks the plate of cookies on my coffee table. I've been thinking, John, about your will. I can't believe it. She's bringing this up again. Karen, I already told you, my will is for my family. Are you planning on killing me or what? Karen doesn't even blink. Well, I think you should include me. It's only right. I'm trying to stay calm, but this is beyond frustrating. Karen, it doesn't work that way. Wills are for family and close friends, not neighbors. She folds her arms and gets all snooty. I've been a great neighbor to you, and I deserve to be in your will. I can feel my patience wearing thin. Karen, being a good neighbor doesn't mean you get a spot in my will. And then she does it again, just like before. She points her finger at me and says, if you don't do it, there will be consequences. I'm thinking, what is it with this woman? Karen, I'm not putting you in my will, and you can't threaten me into doing it. She huffs and puffs, but eventually leaves my house. I'm left wondering if this entitled neighbor of mine is ever going to give up. This whole situation is getting crazier by the day. So, a few days after Karen demanded to be in my will again, I decided it was time to talk to my lawyer. I needed some advice on how to handle this mess. After consulting with my lawyer, I'm heading home one evening. I open my front door, and there she is, Karen, waiting for me. She's not holding cookies this time. Nope, she's holding something else, a small, silver pistol. I can't believe my eyes. I feel my heart race, and my stomach drops. John, she says all calmly, I told you what would happen if you didn't listen to me. My voice shakes as I try to reason with her. Karen, please, put the gun down. We can talk about this. But Karen's lost it. She raises the gun, her hand trembling with anger. I'm trapped in my own doorway, and I'm thinking this is it. This is how it ends. I'm slowly inching my hand towards my pocket, where my cell phone is, hoping I can call for help without her noticing. And I manage to call 911 with the phone inside my pocket and let the dispatcher hear what's going on. I can't risk making any sudden moves. The seconds feel like hours, and I just pray someone hears or sees what's going on. It's a moment I'll never forget, and I hope nobody ever has to go through anything like it. All I could do was try to stay calm and hope for a miracle. As Karen's trembling hand held that pistol steady, I started to back away from her. I had one hand in my pocket, clutching my cell phone, praying the police would come soon. Karen, please, let's not do anything we'll regret. She didn't say a word, just stared at me with a look that sent shivers down my spine. The silence was deafening. Then, out of nowhere, I heard sirens in the distance. My heart pounded with relief because I knew help was on the way. But Karen, she didn't budge. She kept that gun aimed at me. The police cars pulled up, and officers surrounded us. They had their guns drawn and ordered Karen to put the weapon down. It was tense, let me tell you. I kept thinking, please let this end peacefully. A negotiator started talking to Karen through a megaphone, trying to talk her down. It was a nerve-wracking standoff, and I just wanted it to be over. I prayed that Karen would make the right choice and surrender. But she was fixated on something. I don't know what, but she didn't listen to a word I said. It was like she was in her own world, and it was a really scary place. The police negotiator was doing their best, saying, "Karen, think about what you're doing. This won't end well for you." I could hear the urgency in their voice, and I just wanted this nightmare to be over. It felt like hours, but it was only minutes until Karen finally, slowly lowered the gun to the floor. The tension in the room didn't ease up until the police rushed in and secured the weapon. They handcuffed Karen and led her away, and I felt this huge wave of relief wash over me. The whole neighborhood was watching, and I knew they had witnessed the whole ordeal. It was a moment I'll never forget, and I hoped that it was finally the end of this entitlement-fueled nightmare. The police stayed a while, taking statements from me and some neighbors who had witnessed the whole scary scene. I was so thankful for their help and support. But the trauma of that day didn't just go away. I started having nightmares, and I couldn't shake the fear that I might run into Karen again. I realized I needed some help to deal with the anxiety and fear that were lingering. So, I decided to start attending therapy sessions to cope with the aftermath. Talking to a professional helped me make sense of the whole crazy situation and gave me strategies to manage the fear and stress that had taken over my life. One day, I got a letter in the mail that instantly filled me with dread. It was a summons to testify at Karen's trial. I knew it was important to ensure she faced the consequences of her actions, but the thought of seeing her again in court sent shivers down my spine. I reached out to my lawyer, and she assured me that testifying was crucial to ensuring Karen was held accountable. She explained that with my eyewitness account, the prosecution had a strong case against Karen for attempted murder, assault, and other charges. Reluctantly, I agreed to testify. The day of the trial came, and as I entered the courtroom, Karen was sitting there, looking surprisingly calm given the gravity of the situation. During the trial, the prosecutor asked me to recount the events of that horrific day. I had to relive the horrifying moments when Karen demanded to be in my will and then pointed a gun at me. So, after I testified at Karen's trial, I thought it was all over, but it wasn't. The court had to decide on her punishment. I was called back for the sentencing hearing, and I wasn't sure what to expect. During the hearing, I had to share how the incident had affected me personally. I explained the anxiety and fear that still lingered and how it had disrupted my daily life. Karen, on the other hand, seemed unrepentant. She didn't show any remorse for what she had put me through. Her defense attorney tried to argue for leniency, but it was clear that Karen's actions had crossed a line that couldn't be ignored. In the end, the judge handed down a sentence that included a 10-year prison time for Karen. It was a relief to know that she would be behind bars, away from me and the community. The judge also ordered mandatory anger management counseling for her and a restraining order to protect me and my family. I could finally breathe a little easier knowing she wouldn't be lurking around the neighborhood or making outrageous demands. It felt like a weight had been lifted. In the days that followed, I received numerous messages from friends and neighbors, offering their congratulations and support. A few months had passed since Karen was put behind bars. A car pulled up to the curb. It was Karen's sister, Lisa. I hadn't seen her in ages, and I had no idea she was visiting. Lisa got out of the car and approached us with a nervous look. "John, I'm really sorry about what happened with Karen. I had no idea she was behaving like that." "Thanks, Lisa. It's been tough, but we'll get through it." But then, Lisa surprised me. She hesitated for a moment before saying, "I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive Karen someday. I won't bore you with the details, but let's just say, she's been through a lot." "Lisa, I appreciate your concern, but what Karen did was really dangerous. Forgiveness might take time." Lisa looked down, clearly disappointed. "I understand. I just wish things could be different." As she left, I couldn't help but wonder about Karen's family dynamics and the reasons behind her entitled behavior. The encounter with Lisa left me reflecting on forgiveness and whether it would ever be possible. It was a thought-provoking moment in an ongoing journey of recovery and healing. Story 3. I was just trying to get some shopping done for the week, without knowing that soon I'd be witnessing the most epic showdown between an entitled Karen and a mother bear protecting her cub, well, her wheelchair-bound daughter, to be exact. It begins with the store bustling with people and the shelves filled with goodies. I was making my way down the snack aisle, debating whether I should go for the classic potato chips or try something healthier. Spoiler alert, I went for the chips in the end. As I approached the end of the aisle, I noticed a sweet girl in a wheelchair parked by the wall. She had the brightest smile on her face, and she was engrossed in a book while her mom was checking out some nearby products. Just as I was about to move past the girl and head to the next aisle, I heard a commotion behind me. Turning around, I saw a middle-aged woman, a Karen, if you will, with an overflowing shopping cart, fuming with anger. She was huffing and puffing, and from the looks of it, she was having a rough day. Now, let me tell you, the girl in the wheelchair wasn't blocking Karen's way in the slightest. There was plenty of space for her to pass, but you know how entitled people are, they always think the world revolves around them. Karen, shouting, "Move, you useless brat! How dare you block the aisle?" Disabled girl's mom, calmly, "Excuse me, ma'am, there's plenty of space to get through. No need to be rude." Karen, "I don't have time for your nonsense. Move her this instant." Disabled girl's mom, firmly, "I'm not moving my daughter just because you're in a hurry. Plus, she's not really in your way, is she?" Well, friends, you could practically see the smoke coming out of Karen's ears. She was about to explode, and I couldn't help but watch, popcorn style, as the drama unfolded. Karen, furiously, "You'll regret this." And before we knew it, Karen rammed her cart right into the girl's wheelchair, sending her tumbling to the ground. The poor girl was shocked and scared, and her mom rushed over to check on her. Disabled girl's mom, shouting, "Are you out of your mind? What kind of monster are you?" Karen, smirking, "She deserved it. Now she knows better than to get in people's way." I couldn't stay silent any longer. I dashed over to help the girl up, making sure she was okay. Thankfully, she wasn't seriously hurt, but she was shaken. Meanwhile, Karen was still standing there, yelling at the girl and her mom, completely unapologetic. Me, firmly, "Hey, that's enough. You can't treat people like that, especially not someone in a wheelchair." Karen, scoffing, "Stay out of this, you nosy brat." Me, ignoring the insult, "You should be ashamed of yourself. There's no excuse for what you just did." At this point, I was seeing red, and I couldn't just let Karen get away with her entitled behavior. Little did Karen know, karma had other plans. Out of nowhere, Karen let out a piercing scream. I watched as her arms were being forcefully pulled behind her back. A shiny pair of handcuffs getting slapped on her wrists, and before she could comprehend what was happening, Karen found herself restrained and unable to move. Karen, panicking, "Who the hell are you? Let me go." She turned around to see a wall of a man in casual clothes, menacingly staring down at her after he was done handcuffing her. The look on his face was a mix of discipline and pure anger, and it clearly sent shivers down Karen's spine. "Man," calmly, "I'm the watch commander of the police department, and I'm also the proud father of the disabled girl you just assaulted. And now you are under arrest for the crimes you've committed." Karen's face turned as pale as a ghost. It was clear that her entitled actions had led her down a path she never expected. "Commander," firmly, "you think you can just go around hurting innocent people and get away with it? Well, not today. You're facing serious charges for your actions, and you will be held accountable." Karen, stammering, I didn't know she was your daughter. I didn't mean to hurt her that bad. It was just a little shove." Commander, "A little shove? She's in a wheelchair, for heaven's sake. Your actions were despicable, and I won't let you escape the consequences." As Karen tried to come up with excuses, the watch commander began reading her the Miranda rights with an unwavering voice. "Watch commander, You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, one will be provided for you. Karen, frustrated, this is outrageous. You can't do this. Watch Commander. Oh, I can, and I did. You assaulted a minor and caused harm to a disabled girl. Your sense of entitlement won't protect you from the law. Karen's protests fell on deaf ears as the watch commander called for backup to have a cruiser pick her up and transport her to the police station. Watch Commander. Firmly, you'll have plenty of time to think about your actions behind bars. As the police cruiser arrived, Karen's desperate attempts to free herself continued, but the handcuffs were secure. The officers assisted in getting her into the back seat, ensuring she couldn't cause any further trouble. Karen, pleading, please, you don't have to do this. I promise I won't do it again. Watch Commander. You should have thought about that before you attacked a disabled child. With Karen safely secured in the cruiser, the watch commander turned his attention back to his girl and her mother. He embraced her and tried his best to calm her down after what she went through. The mother thanked me for my intervention and support with a grateful and heartwarming smile. And as for Karen, well, she learned the hard way that karma doesn't discriminate based on who you are or who you think you are. So yeah, the moral of the story is simple. Be kind, be compassionate, and treat others with respect, no matter their circumstances. And if you think you can get away with entitled behavior, watch out, you might just find yourself facing a wall of justice, with no escape in sight. Story 4. Last Friday, my best friend had just gotten his driver's license, and we were all excited to celebrate. There were 5 of us, me, my best friend, and 3 other close pals from high school. We'd been planning this night out for weeks, saving up our allowances and part-time job money to rent a lane at the fancy new bowling alley that had just opened up downtown. The place was amazing. It had neon lights everywhere, a small arcade section, and even a little cafe that served actually decent food. We were all pumped to try out the lanes and have a good time. We got there around 7 p.m., paid for our lane, and grabbed our shoes. The guy at the counter was super nice and even gave us a quick rundown of how to use the electronic scoreboard. Everything was going great. For the first hour or so, we were having a blast. My best friend was killing it, getting strike after strike. I was doing okay, mostly spares with a few lucky strikes here and there. The rest of the gang was having fun too, even if they weren't exactly bowling champs. That's when she walked in. Karen. I didn't know her name at the time, of course, but man, did she fit the stereotype perfectly. Middle-aged, bleached blonde hair in a messy bob, wearing clothes that looked like they came straight out of a 90s fashion magazine, and the attitude? You could smell it from a mile away. She marched up to the counter, practically shoving past a group of kids who were waiting to get their shoes. We could hear her shrill voice from our lane. Karen, I demand to speak to the manager right now. The poor guy at the counter looked terrified. He couldn't have been more than 18 or 19. Counter guy, I'm sorry, ma'am, but the manager isn't here right now. Is there something I can help you with? Karen, this is unacceptable. I made a reservation for 8 p.m., and it's now 8:05. Where's my lane? Counter guy, I'm very sorry about that. Let me check our system. We could see him tapping away at his computer, looking more and more nervous. Counter guy, I'm afraid I don't see any reservation under your name for tonight. Are you sure it was for today? Karen, are you calling me a liar? Of course it was for today. I demand you give me a lane right now. Counter guy, I'm sorry, ma'am, but all our lanes are currently occupied. If you'd like, I can put you on the waiting list and… Karen, waiting list. I am not waiting. I want a lane now. At this point, my friends and I were trying not to stare, but it was hard not to. The woman was causing such a scene that everyone in the bowling alley was watching. Suddenly, she turned and locked eyes with me. I quickly looked away, but it was too late. She had found her target. Karen stormed over to our lane, with an angry red face. We all froze, not sure what to do. Karen, you kids, how long have you been here? My best friend, always the brave one, spoke up. Best friend, about an hour or so, ma'am. Karen, perfect. You've had your fun. Now give me your lane. We all just stared at her, dumbfounded. Was this lady for real? Me, I'm sorry, but we paid for 2 hours. We still have another hour left. Karen, I don't care. I have a reservation, and I'm taking this lane. Move it. My other friend, the quietest of our group, tried to reason with her. Quiet friend, ma'am, we heard you at the counter. They don't have any record of your reservation. We can't just give up our lane. We paid for it. That's when things went from bad to worse. Karen's face contorted with rage. She reached out and grabbed my quiet friend by the shirt collar. Karen, listen here, you little brat. I am an adult, and you will do as I say. My best friend stepped forward, trying to defuse the situation. Best friend, please let go of him. We don't want any trouble. Karen, trouble? I'll show you trouble. And then, in a move that shocked us all, she slapped my best friend across the face. Hard. The sound echoed through the bowling alley. Everyone gasped. My best friend stumbled backward, more from surprise than pain, and that's when it happened. He had been holding a bowling ball, getting ready for his turn. When Karen slapped him, he instinctively let go. The heavy ball fell straight down, right onto Karen's foot. The crunch was sickening. Karen's scream was even worse. She collapsed to the ground, clutching her foot and wailing like a banshee. Everything after that was a blur. Someone called an ambulance. The police showed up. We gave our statements, still in shock from what had happened. The manager finally appeared, apologizing profusely and assuring us that we weren't in any trouble. It turned out the bowling alley had security cameras that captured the whole thing. The footage clearly showed Karen assaulting my friend before the bowling ball incident. My best friend's parents decided to press charges for assault. Karen got a broken foot and an assault charge. Turns out, she had a history of causing scenes like this at other businesses in town. The bowling alley banned her for life. We didn't finish our game that night, but the manager gave us all free passes for our next visit. He even threw in some free tokens for the arcade. It was a crazy night, one that none of us will ever forget. We still go bowling, but now we always keep an eye out for any potential Karens. And my best friend? He jokes that he's retired from bowling, saying he's already scored a perfect strike against entitlement. Story 5. In high school, there was this girl named Martina Papp. I never met her or talked to her, but one day I discovered that she disliked me intensely. I had no idea why at first. After some investigation, I found out that her animosity stemmed from a parody newspaper I had created. I was a huge fan of a well-known humor magazine, and naturally, I decided to make my own version of the school newspaper, spoofing its content. Martina was the editor of the actual school newspaper, and she disliked me because everyone read my parody, while few people read the official publication. The reason for this was that the school newspaper was dull and heavily controlled by the administration, making it feel out of touch with student life. My parody, however, was funny, poking fun at teachers who were unpopular among students. It spread through the school like wildfire. People started approaching Martina, asking why the real newspaper couldn't be as enjoyable as my parody, and even suggesting that she recruit me as a writer. The school newspaper staff, however, was quite exclusive, with only friends of those in charge being allowed to join. To be fair, I didn't intend for my parody to reach the entire school. I had only made 3 copies to share with close friends, but they made additional copies and passed them around, and soon those people did the same. By the time I handed out the first 3 copies before class, the paper had spread rapidly. As I walked down the hall after my first class, I saw many people gathered around, reading something and laughing. To my surprise, horror, and delight, they were all reading my parody newspaper. My amusement was short-lived, as I ended up being suspended for 3 days for writing the parody. The reason? I had mocked teachers, and foolishly, I had listed myself as the editor. Even after my suspension, Martina continued to speak poorly of me around the school. I constantly heard false rumors being spread about me, started by Martina. She even went so far as to insult me whenever we passed each other in the halls. What Martina didn't know was that I had thought of a particularly unpleasant nickname for her. I'm usually good at coming up with nicknames, but I hadn't shared this one with anyone, as I knew it wasn't exactly polite. Before she started insulting me, I had no reason to use it. The nickname was Martina Pap Smear. It wasn't the most clever name, but it was just the kind of thing that would stick in the minds of us immature high schoolers. So, the next time she randomly insulted me in the halls, I responded with, "Thanks, Martina Pap Smear." As I had suspected, the nickname caught on, and she had to carry it for the rest of her high school career. A few weeks later, as a bit of harmless revenge for my suspension, I decided to create another parody paper. This time, I left my name off it. I printed 100 copies and went to school early, hours before classes started, spreading them around. Once again, the paper went viral, but this time, when the vice principal called me to his office, I claimed it was a copycat publication and had nothing to do with me. As a result, I avoided suspension the second time around.